Equine Canada and the New Brunswick Equestrian Association are happy to present the rider level series, and we are going to start with today rider levels 1 and 2. The horse's body is divided into 3 sections. First and foremost, you have the forehand, which includes the head, neck, shoulders, chest, and forelegs. The second part is called the body, which includes the withers, back, loin, flank, and barrel. And the last part is called the hind quarters, which includes the croup, haunches, buttocks, hind legs, and tail. We'll start with the forehand, and the first part will be the parts of the head. Number 1, as you can see by the numbers, is called the poll, spelled P-O-L-L. And then on either side of the poll are the ears. Number 3 is the forehead. Number 4 are the eyes. 5 is the face. Number 6 is the nostrils. Number 7, lips. 8, lower jaw. 9, cheekbone. And 10 is cheek. Still included in the forehand will be the parts of the foreleg. If you look at number 11, where it's pointed to, that is called the elbow. Number 12 is the forearm. Number 13 is the knee. 14 is called the cannon bone. 15 is the fetlock. 16 is the pastern. 17 is the hoof. And number 18 is the chestnut, which is the scent gland of the horse. Then we go on to the body. If you see, they are alphabetically in order. We start with number A, and this is called the head. Number B is the neck. C is the shoulders. D, chest. E, withers. F is the back. G is the loin. H, flank. I, barrel. J, croup. K is called the haunches. L, buttocks. M, tail. N, teats or sheath. And the last part of the horse is called the hind quarters. And we're going to do the parts of the hind leg. Number 1, if you see the arrow, it points to the stifle joint. Number 2 is called the stifle. Number 3 is the chestnut. Number 4, cannon bone. 5, fetlock. 6, pastern. 7, hoof. 8, hock. And it's important to know the parts of the horse. If you have a horse that is injured and you call the veterinary services, they will ask you what part is injured, and you're able to tell them exactly where it is, and that gives them more information for the veterinarian to deal with the case. Yep. Now we have the colors of the horse. We'll start with if you look at the top of the page, your first horse on the left is the color black, and your second horse behind the black horse is called a chestnut, and he's reddish in color. Another name that they'll call that horse's color is also called sorrel, which is what you would see in the Western. Now, just below, to your left, is the yellow-colored horse, but the proper name for that one is a palomino. And it's a beautiful color with the white mane and white tail. And then your horse behind it, which is a very popular color you see in a lot of horses today, is called the bay. And he's brown in color, and he has black mane and tail and black legs, as you notice. They call that black points. And then your third horse on the right, which is really becoming more popular here, we're seeing in the province, is the buckskin. And it's a different color than the palomino. And it's a much more yellow golden color, but it's different than the palomino because it has a black mane and tail and the black legs, or black points they call it, and that is called the buckskin. And again, you need to know the colors of the horse, because if you're selling a horse, that's one of the specifics you would put down. If you were selling your horse, people will always ask what color is your horse, because they look at color when they're purchasing horses. And you also have to have the color of the horse for your Cognus test. So again, that'll be put on your Cognus test when you're having that done for the show season. The next section of the colors, this is called the mixed coats. We have two separate colors and two colors mixed in the coat. So if you look at the top of the page on the left, the horse that is the mouse colored, and that is like a grayish black, and as you notice, they have the black points, mane, tail, and black legs. It's a very interesting color. It's neat to look at. Your next horse is your gray, and the horse again has that gray white through that coat. They don't always have to have the black legs and mane and tail. They can, but they can also have the white mane and tail and gray down the legs with some white, maybe however the horse is marked, on the pasterns or on the cannon bone. So anyway, you have that is your gray. Your next color is a very neat color called the strawberry roan. And again, it's the chestnut colored hair, the white colored hair. You may have little specks of kind of black in there, and it's just a really cool colored horse. And that's called strawberry roan. Now, if you look on the bottom of the page, we have mixed coats, and these are three color mix. And your first horse is your blue roan. And again, that is like blue, a little bit of gray, and a little bit of black mixed in there. And that's a very nice color. And again, called the blue roan. And then your last horse on the bottom of the page is called the bay roan. And as you can see by the color, it's really quite a cool looking color also. And the next colors are the mixed coats, which is also called the paint coat. And if you see the first horse on the left, it is called an Appaloosa. And you see the black spots on the hind end. And you can also have the black spots throughout the body, maybe a white color with the black spots throughout the body. And your next middle horse is called the Skewbald, which is the brown and white. And again, another name for them is paint, but go with the title skewbald for that color because that's what they are calling them. Again, brown and white. And then your last horse is the black and white called the piebald. And that's a very nice color also of a horse. And the next we have is the white markings on the forehead. If you start with the first horse, and this is his forehead looking at you, you see this tiny little white spot between his eyes or above his eyes, and that is called the star. And then you look at your second horse's profile of his head, and this one's a little bit larger, kind of in a diamond shape, and that is also called a star. And then if you look at your third horse's head, it's a much rounder, larger white spot, and again, that is also called a star. And then if you go to your fourth horse's head, you will see a little tiny white spot, and again, it's still called a faint star. So there's different forms of star, but they're all classified as one. Then your fifth horse, you'll see this long white stripe down the front of his face, and that is called the strip. And then your last horse, you'll see a much larger, broader white stripe down his face, and that is called the blaze. Now you look at our next page is the white markings on the forehead. First horse on the left, you see a round white mark with a long stripe, and that is called a star and a stripe. Now your second horse has a long stripe that ventures off into the left nostril, and that is called an irregular stripe. Then your third horse has a white stripe and stops at the middle of his face, and then it continues on again down to between his nostrils, and that is called an interrupted stripe. Now our fourth horse on the right, he has a very large white marking from the forehead right down to the middle of the nostrils, and that is called a wide blaze. And then if you look over at your last horse on the right, he has a star, and then he has a white small little strip between his nostrils, and that is called a star and a snip. Your next is the white markings on the forehead. If you look at your first horse on the left, you have a white small little area starting kind of in the middle of the face, and it runs around the nostrils, and the upper lip is white and the bottom lip is white, and this is called the large snip. Your second horse is white that starts halfway on the forehead but runs around his left eye and runs down the front of his face, encompasses the upper and lower lips and the nostrils, and that is called a half bald face. And if you look at the last horse on the right, we have pretty much a white face, and the white goes to the outside of his eyes and runs down the front of his face, and he has white nostrils, upper lip, and lower lip, and that is called a bald face. Next, we have the markings on the legs. If you look at your first leg, we have white. that only is on the coronet. So the name of that is called a sock. And it just is white that could be halfway around the coronet or could be fully around the coronet. Your next leg is called a sock also, and the sock is white around the coronet and the pastern, and it ends just below your fetlock, and that is called a pasture, which is also called a sock. Then third one is called a short stocking. If you notice that we have a white coronet, a white pastern, white fetlock, and we're midway up the cannon bone showing white, and that is called a short stocking. Our fourth leg is called a stocking, and it's white from below the knee all the way down to the hoof, and that is fully white, and it's called a stocking. Then you see horses that have a complete white leg which goes up over the knee area, and that is called a high stocking. And then you have your last picture, which is called an ermined short stocking. And that is where you have a white partial pastern, but it has black spots on the white. And again, the name is ermined short stocking. Next, we're going to look at the head and neck, and it's very important to actually read a horse's eye. He tells you a lot about himself. And if we start with the first picture on the left, this horse has a really wide, big eye, and he has actually been startled. And so we call this surprise or fear. And his eyes get bigger, and he does. He's fearsome. If you look at your next picture, the eyes are a little bit lowered, and again, he's dozing. So we call that state sleeping. And our third state, we're looking at the ears are pinned right back to the sides of the neck. He's curled his nostril up and he's just winching with his eyes, and that's called angry. And those are the ones that you have to be very careful of. And the next horse, he has his ears really pricked forward and he's looking and he may be snorting a bit and he's just kind of curious, looking at what he's not sure what's out there in front of him. And again, it's very important to be able to read a horse's face. It tells you a lot. If they're happy, if they're sad, if they're sleeping. And again, you need to be able to speak to them if you're coming up towards them and they don't know that you're there. And it's always important to be safe around a horse. Now, if you look at the next page we have here, it's called the back. And if you look at your first horse on the left, you'll see that his ears are really flat. They're like they're going east and west. They're not sitting up forward. They're not set back, pinned back on his neck. They're going east and west. They're very floppy, and he has a very worried look on his face. And this shows you a horse that's feeling a little sick. And again, he's worried, his nostrils might be flared, and he's really inward with his thinking right now because he doesn't feel good. And if you look at your second horse, he's just kind of got his neck stretched down and his back is stretched and he's resting his hind left leg and he's actually slightly sleeping. So this horse is very relaxed. And he's probably standing out in the pasture, his belly is full, or he's standing in his stall and he's just sort of dozing. So again, he's relaxed. And if you look at our last horse, these are the ones to really be aware of because this horse has his ears pinned back to the sides of his neck. He's kind of clenched his teeth together and his nostrils are kind of turned up some, and he's just about to kick something or someone. And those are the ones to be very aware of and to be able to read that type of mannerism from that horse. Now, if you look at the next page, it's called the tail. And the tail tells you a lot about the horse also. If you look at the tail here on this first horse on the left, the tail is very relaxed. It's in against the dock of the horse. It's hanging quietly. There's no movement. And again, this horse is very, very relaxed. And he's probably kind of happy. He's very content. But if you look at the second picture, you'll see this horse, the tail up over. Some go over the back. Some are just up, carried away from the dock. And again, they're probably running around the paddock or something has spooked them in their stall. And again, they're kind of high-spirited horses. You'll see that. And then your last horse, if you notice, seems to be switching the tail. So they can switch the tail for two reasons. They could be angry or they're irritated by bugs. And sometimes they're just plain angry and they just don't really want you touching them or handling them. So you need to read these signs also because one has to be safe around a horse. Now again, in this figure, you'll notice here on figure 1, we talk about the parts of the hoof. And it's important to know the parts of the hoof like it does the parts of the horse. Because again, you need to contact your farrier to get work done. And sometimes horses have cracks in their feet and you need to tell them where exactly the cracks are so they're better prepared when they come out to shoe the horse or the vet coming out to look at the horse. And if you look at number 1, this is the front of the hoof, and this is called the toe. Number 2 is the side wall. Number 3 is the quarter. And number 4 is called the heel. Now figure 2, this is the hoof that is picked up off the ground, and we're looking down on it. And again, we need to know the parts of the hoof to pass your rider level tests, plus also when dealing with the farrier or the veterinarian. Number 1 is, you can see by this arrow, is called the wall. That is the protective surface that goes around the hoof, the outside, which comes a little bit to the inside, protects the hoof, and that's called the wall. Number 2 is your white line. Number 3 is the sole. Number 4 are the bars. Number 5 is the frog. 6 is the cleft of the frog. And 7 is the heel. Now on this slide that we're looking at, this is the rider sitting on top of the horse, position quite equitated. And we have to talk to the horse to make him actually go. So again, we don't always talk with voice, we also talk with our body parts. So if you're looking at how we actually get horses to actually perform, what we have is called natural aids. And your first natural aid are your legs, both legs. Your second natural aid is called your hands. Number 3 is the rider's weight and seat is also an aid. Number 4 is the voice. And number 5 are the eyes. Now, if we look at the artificial aids, which helps to entice or increase our aid, we have artificial aids, and number 6 is called the spurs, which make the horse go forward from our leg. And the last artificial aid would be called the crop, which is held in the rider's right hand, as you can see on this page. Now, the next section is the type of rein aids, which is very, very valuable information for when you're riding a horse. And it's also used in training the horse to their level of training and the type of rein aids that you would use to actually make them to entice them to do what you want them to do. If you look down at this rider, she's using an open or leading rein. From the basic hand position in contact with the horse's mouth on a straight line, bring the hand outwards, turning the horse's neck in the direction you wish to go. So again, the hand just comes out and you lead the horse around the turn. And again, this type of rein aid is used on a green horse. It's also used on doing jumper rollback turns to keep allow the horse to come around the turn without stiffening. Now your second rein aid is called the neck bearing or supporting rein. And if you look down at this rider, that's that outside right hand of theirs, and it's pressing against the neck. So we'll just go over what is actually wrote here. From the basic hand position in contact with the horse's mouth on a straight line, apply the rein against the neck of the horse, always keeping the hand on the same level and without crossing your hand over to the other side of the neck. So the right arm, we're going in the left direction, would press against the neck to help push that horse around. Now the third rein aid is called the indirect rein. And as you notice, this rider is going in the direction of the left rein. And if you read what it says on the left side of your page, the left rein directed slightly towards the right hip, but never across the horse's neck. So the left hand would work over towards your right hip, but it does not cross over the neck. And that shifts the weight from the inside shoulder into the outside shoulder, which again helps them to turn easily. The last rein aid is called the direct rein. And again, this horse is going in the direction of going left. And again, keep the basic hand position and resist with your fingers on the side that you wish the rein aids. So again, that left rein of that rider works back like you're opening up the door. So the elbow would come back and you apply a strong inside leg, and that assists in the bending of that horse through the rib cage. All right, and the most important section here is to know your arena letters. This is 8.1. And again, this gives you direction when you're riding and training horses. The arena is fenced or covered area set aside for riding and training horses. The arena is sometimes called the school. When it is not covered, the term riding ring may also be used. The arena is rectangular and usually measures at least 20 meters wide by 40 meters long. Letters are placed on the sides as markers. It is important to know that A and C are located at the centers of the short sides, and B and E are the centers of the long sides. The letters H, M, K, and F are situated 6 meters from each corner. The center point inside the arena is X. Now, the order of the letters can be memorized by remembering the following rhyme from right to left. All King Edward's horsemen can master big fences. All right, now if you look at your page, you're going to have to label the arena letters. So A is on the left of your page, the first middle circle on the short side. And then we're going to go up, straight up the page, and then the next letter at the top of the page on the left is called K. Then the next letter beside that is E, and the next letter beside that is H. And then we're coming again to the middle of the short side, and that is C. And then we're coming around the ring, and the next letter is M, B, and F. If you're going up the center line from A, the letter between K and F is called D. The letter between E and B is called X. That is the middle of your ring. And then the letter between H and M is G. So you need to look at that and memorize those letters.